We are in this for the long run. We're doing it no matter how long it takes. There's no date attached to the dream and the goals and all the things that we want to create through our business. Quitting is not an option because we didn't hit a certain benchmark by December 31st of an arbitrary year, time, whatever. Quitting is not an option. Okay, I have news. So, new year, all new curriculum in the online business school. If this is something that you've been considering doing over the last couple of years, since it started really in the fall of 2021, originally known as the Premier Coaching Center, this would be a great time to do it. If you want me to be one of your guides along your journey in creating your dream business. And I'll explain to you why that is. So up until now, the curriculum and the course material that's been inside of the online business school was courses that I built 2019, 2020, and a lot has changed for me. A lot has evolved for me and in my business, the way I do business, the way I approach and teach business over the last 2-3 years. So I decided that it was time to redo all of the curriculum inside the online business school. And with the fresh start of the new year, this is what that's going to look like. We will have quarter by quarter topics and ongoing support in between for people inside the online business school container. So example, first quarter, we're doing online presence. So the program is called Grow Your Online Presence. It is a 4-part course. So you can join, you can come to the course alone if you only want to do that particular quarter. Or if you're a member, you can come to all of the programs throughout the year. So Q1, we're doing Grow Your Online Presence. We'll talk social media presence. We'll talk Big U Energy. It's an 8-week experience where I will help you with the underneath, the foundational stuff to help you really go deep on what it means to have an online presence and how to build an online presence that's platform proof. Then in Q2, we're going to move into content bootcamp. So we're going to go straight into deep discussions on content, how to create content that is a true expression and art form and medium of your work, yourself, the big U energy that we really got an understanding of in Q1. We're going to move into content bootcamp in Q2. Q3, we'll move into course creation 2.0. If you came to course creation for doulas 3.5 years ago, it is very evolved. I'm no longer only using birth professionals and the birth industry as examples. It's for anybody who's doing heart-centered service-based work. Course creation 2.0 will be in Q3, where we will be building courses together. Then in Q4, we're going to move into a course on marketing. So it'll be all about marketing, selling, showing up online. But the key thing, when I looked at the year and looked at the curriculum, in my opinion, it's really important to get clear on who you are at your deepest level and understand how you can be the most express version of yourself and tap into your big U energy to build this online presence that is authentic. And I know that that's such a buzzword that can be really annoying and thrown around all over the place. But the truth is, you are the only you. And I hear people ask all the time, like, how do you do that? How do you be so you in your social media accounts and everything? And the truth is, it wasn't always this way. You know, when I'll probably have a full podcast episode on this because my personal evolution has come so far and how I've allowed more of me to be expressed through my work. And the more that you do that, the deeper the conversations, the more intimate the connections and real the relationships are that you build in the online space. See, this isn't all about, creating courses to sell and make money or creating content that you might get paid from Instagram for making a viral reel. Like, that's nice and all, but this isn't what that's really about. And in my opinion, and in my experience, really getting clear on you, the big U energy, and going deep as you create your online presence and build your online presence is arguably the most important piece to start with, because you could jump in and do any of these other things like mastering reels or creating courses or doing any of these other things, but your experience in doing those things might not be what you expect if it's not truly an expression of who you are at your core. So having said all of that, as we move quarter by quarter, you'll be able to join individual quarters as a standalone if that's what you prefer. And there will be links in the show notes, links in my accounts, links on all the pages where you can see what the differences are. And if you want to do just a quarter, that's absolutely okay. Or if you are a member in the online business school, you would get to come to all of them. It's effectively like a class pass for the year, but it's not just the 8-week segments for each quarter. You would get to come to all of the monthly, and these are the new features. So monthly, we're now going to have small group coaching lab. So we have the school, we have class where you come and you learn and I teach, and then we have lab. So lab is going to occur monthly on Zoom where you come and it's very interactive. I get my hands and my eyes on your business, and you can get real-time feedback when you show up live and you have real questions. And that's your opportunity for that small group coaching vibe. Those will occur monthly. So you'll have 12 of those. Plus, if there's extra, an opportunity to create extra throughout the year. And the other new feature that's coming to the online business school is the feedback and audits. So we're doing monthly feedback and audits. Again, if you want my eyes on your work and you want my feedback, this is something that my clients, my private clients throughout the last several years have really enjoyed, is sending me a page, sending me a link, sending me a synopsis of the program they're putting together and saying like, here's what I've worked on. What do you see? What's your feedback? What are your thoughts? And I really enjoy doing this. So I decided that this would be a really helpful feature to have in the online business school for members. So once a month, it's on our calendar. You come to the Zoom live stream and you pop your link for something that you want feedback in the comments, and I give you real-time feedback on with the group. So now I've just shared a whole lot of information with you. If you want more information about Q1, grow your online presence, there's links in all the places that you can go check it out. Or if you prefer to join for the year, there's a link to the online business school. And as an online business school member, you can access the existing portal that's there as well. And we kick off on January 22nd this year for Grow Your Online Presence. It's the live 8-week program. Now, if that's the only quarter that you're joining, your experience is going to be that 8 weeks, which will include 4 live classes on growing your online presence. And it will include 2 live feedback audit sessions and 2 small group coaching sessions. So it's a very interactive, hands-on. I look at these as intensives, quarterly intensives where we go deep on a pretty specific component of your business, and I can get my hands in your business, eyes on, give you feedback and guide you through actually stepping forward, moving forward on your path, doing the thing. It's one of those things where we're no longer like sitting on our hands, feeling like, maybe one day I'll do this, but I'm a little bit too this, or I'm a little too nervous, or I'm too that. We're leaving our excuses at the door. That's something that I think we can all agree to be done with for 2022 is excuses at the door. There is literally like no valid reason to hold you back and to hold back your magic starting right now. So if you'd like my support, these are the opportunities. If you prefer private mentorship, I do have a few spots available for that in 2023. Feel free to email me. My DMs are open. I'd love to support you and answer any questions that you have. All right, I'll see you there. Welcome back and happy 2023. So the new year and the energy of the new year, conversations about the energy of the new year is actually what inspired this week's episode and this conversation I want to have with you and share a couple things with you about how to guarantee that your dreams, your business goals, whatever you want to call them, that they will actually occur, they will come true, that it's inevitable. How do we get to that point? But before we do all of that and have that conversation, a little bit of backstory about what brought me to that point. So a couple days ago, my kids went back to school after winter break and I got back to work. So officially January 4th, I was back to work, client calls, group calls, etc. I heard the feedback from several of my clients that they just weren't in that new year jumpstart energy just yet. They weren't vibing with it yet. And it was January 4th. And they were like, I don't know, I just don't feel it yet. I'm still recovering from right? The holidays and New Year and family and children and all the things, all the beautiful things. And they still felt very much like they were recovering. And I'm going to share with you now what I shared with them on January 4th. I didn't have my new year all the way planned out and have everything done on January 1st, hit the ground running either. And I made a planner. It's okay. So I'm sharing that so that you know it's okay if you didn't wake up feeling all planning and organized on January 1st. And this is coming from a pretty hardcore structure, planner, logistical person, right? I'm hardwired to have plan and structure in place. And I woke up on January 1st and I didn't want to do the things, the planning things. I wasn't ready yet. The energy wasn't supportive of me doing that just yet. And it makes sense. I noticed it wasn't just me, it was my clients and then really my children too. And it makes sense if you think about it, and I'll explain why. So much of the Northern Hemisphere is still experiencing the cold of winter, right? And the body during this season naturally wants to pull inward and hibernate and rest, with the exception of Florida, because it's like 70 degrees and sunny, and Floridians know that this is the time to be outside and to take advantage of our weather, to get outside, have fun, go to the parks, do all the things before we are like drowning in our own sweat. And it's hotter than seven hells in the summer, which is a strange feeling, right? It's beautiful to get outside and enjoy this weather. And also it's kind of confusing to the body if you live in Florida, because the body wants to hibernate and wants to rest. And I feel that pull. And then I find myself pushing myself to get outside. I think it was January 2nd. I took the children to the beach because it was like 80 degrees and sunny. And I was so tired. My body was exhausted headed to the beach. And I thought, this is such an interesting feeling, right? We want to get outside and enjoy it. It feels so good. And what a beautiful thing to be able to have our feet in the sand, not in the water, because it was kind of cold for us Floridians. The Northerners were all in the water though. And yet, like, I felt exhausted. All I wanted to do was lay in bed. And for a few days into the new year, that's actually what we did. So like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and the day out, like other than a 2-hour block at the beach that's about 30 minutes from my house, I just wanted to be inward. So I've been feeling like really and very normally tired. This is the body's process during this season of the year, right? Not to mention, so outside of Florida, right? Not to mention much of the world, in North America, I should say, my world in North America was literally frozen with the storm that swept through during the holiday season. So there's even more of a push for people to want to just coop up inside with books and journals and snuggle in blankets when it's like so much snow outside, right? So if you didn't hit the ground running, perhaps your body knows more than what your mind and society are telling you. We get so hung up on, and quite frankly, conditioned to adhere to, the calendar that's most commonly accepted throughout the world, especially in the West, the Gregorian calendar, which was the language that I learned more about actually this year. I looked it up because I'm like, well, what is this January 1st calendar called? I didn't know prior to this year. It's the Gregorian calendar. There were a lot of people on social media talking about it. So I did a little bit more of my own research. And what I found is that the history of the Gregorian calendar has a few different perspectives and theories, as most history, I think, does, because it really depends on who wrote the story, right? It's a story, his story. So who wrote the story? Regardless of who wrote the story and what the origins were, I think that the important point to note is that it came from somebody. Somebody wrote this calendar and created it for a purpose, which I'm not knocking the purpose, but what I'm saying is that it might not be in alignment with our body's rhythm and with what's happening with the moons and the earth and all the things. So if you feel very connected to your body, if your body feels connected to the lunar cycle and Earth, then this is actually not, January 1st might not be the time that you're like, okay, let's go get them. Your body might be fighting you a little bit on that. So it's okay. All this to say, if January 1st isn't your preference, you have options. This isn't the IRS. And if you're outside of the United States, the IRS is the Internal Revenue Service. Accounting. It's your taxes. Your tax year starts on January 1st and ends on December 31st. Period. But for a lot of other things, you may have some options, including your new year when you celebrate the new year. And I've shared this in another episode. I don't remember which episode that was, but there are alternatives that you can try on and see what feels correct for you. For example, the lunar new year starts on January 22nd. So depending on when you hear this episode or watch the video, you might not yet be in the new year. You might be approaching the new year. Your new year might also be on your birthday. So one of my mentors and dear friends introduced this concept to me sometime last year, that she celebrates New Year on her birthday. That's the start of her new year. So that's another interesting way to approach it. Or you might follow the new year cycle of your culture and or your religion. So if you're Jewish, you might celebrate the new year in the fall during Rosh Hashanah. If you are Muslim, you might celebrate the new year during the summer. Whatever date you want truly can be what you bring your own new year energy into. You're in charge of your life. You're in charge of your business, so long as you pay your taxes on time, right? So if you're open to trying a different new year on, other than the generally accepted January 1st, my question to you is, what else can you play with the concept of time? I saw a meme that a coach that I recently discovered, one of my friends, I think, shared one of her posts and her stories, and I clicked through and I discovered her page, and I really resonated with a lot of her content. And so she shared a meme. Her name is Simone Soul, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I did Google it, but Google's not all that helpful with that sometimes. So Simone Soul, and she shared this meme that said, "You want to make future goals inevitable? Linear time is an illusion." So it got me starting to think about New Year, the New Year goals, and how people put so much pressure on themselves to January 1st. Everything changes on January 1st. And then what happens if things kind of don't happen during the year like you planned for them to? Is that a total wash? We could kind of spiral down that thought pattern, or we can approach it through a different lens. And that's what I want to share with you today, is a different lens, a different way to approach this concept of playing with time as it pertains to your dreams and your goals in your business. So let's break this down a little bit. I do have notes, so I don't forget some of the things I want to make sure I share with you. If we do believe, of which I do, if you don't, it's totally okay. But if we believe that time is not linear, why are we putting an arbitrary future date on our dreams, right? For example, suppose one of your dreams is to help 1,000 people this year. If you help 997 people between January 1st and December 31st of this year, then what? Like, did you miss your goal? An alternative way to approach the same dream so that it becomes inevitable, like it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's guaranteed to happen. If you do this, drop the date, drop the arbitrary date. So what that might look like, if you reframe, rephrase, rethink, and it through a different lens, that same goal, that same dream, and you might say it like this: I'm going to help 1,000 people, no matter how long it takes. It's inevitable. It becomes inevitable. It becomes a guarantee, because you're not limiting yourself with a date, with an arbitrary date. It might take you more than 365 days, or it might take you less. What if it took you 67 days? If it took you 67 days to help 1,000 people, would that initial arbitrary date that you were assigning before have limited you, right? Let's say you help 1,000 people in 67 days. What about the other 298 days of the year? You just stop there. You're like, okay, I'm done. I helped 1,000 people by, what's that math? Like early March? No, you probably keep going. You'd build momentum and you'd be excited. And the more excited you get, the more you might want to help. And the more people you help, and it just kind of compounds. You might do a whole lot more that year. So that initial arbitrary date could have limited your potential expansion and what's possible for you. So just another way to think about it. And that's the thing about doing business the way that we're doing business, right? Like, there's a lot of people doing business in a different way out in the world. But if you've landed in my corner of the internet, or I'm in your ear, somebody shared this episode with you, or you're on my Instagram or wherever watching this, we are in this for the long run. We're doing it no matter how long it takes. There's no date attached to the dream and the goals and all the things that we want to create through our business. Quitting is not an option because we didn't hit a certain benchmark by December 31st of an arbitrary year, time, whatever. Quitting is not an option. A bridge job perhaps could be an option to help you get from here to there. That's what I refer to as that job that's the bridge connecting where you are now to where you're going to be at some point with your business when you continue to move forward. Example, we hear this a lot with actors. We don't always hear this with certain business owners, right? We see like the flashy, successful story, but we don't hear how some of them were able to feed themselves, house themselves until it got to that flashy point. But we do hear it a lot with actors, for example. You hear a lot of actors say that they waited tables all the way through going to casting calls kind of thing. I don't even know. I'm not an actor, right? But actors go to casting calls and they read lines and they go to all of these types of things to try to get picked up for movies and shows and such. So how are they feeding themselves until the inevitable occurs, that they get the jobs? How are they eating? A lot of them say, like, I waited tables, I worked here, I worked there. Viola Davis recently said that she worked in Times Square when she was like 21, passing out something and selling something, right? So like those are bridge jobs. There's nothing wrong with bridge jobs, right? The point is that the people who have these successful experiences and success stories, they didn't quit. They weren't like, okay, you know what? Since I wasn't an actor by 12/31/23, I just don't think this is for me. And the example that comes to mind that I heard somebody share sometime last year was Walt Disney. Walt Disney was turned down something like 300, I don't remember how many, but something ridiculous, like 300 times for financing for Walt Disney World. If you've ever been to Walt Disney World, you can really feel how big that is. To have that kind of vision. They own so much property in Orlando, Florida. I don't know about Disneyland in California, but I've been to Disney World lots of times in Florida, and they have 4 parks. There are 4 amusement parks. I don't know how many resorts that are owned by Disney Springs, and then there's a water park, and then there's this, and then there's that. Like the amount of property that Disney, they have their own electric, like power lines. They have their own power lines. There are power lines in Orlando. When you start to get into Disney property, the power lines have Mickey ears. When the last time we went to Disney, as we were leaving, I was like, I've seen these a million times, right? I grew up in Florida. Orlando is not very far. It hits me so like every day. They have their own Mickey ear power lines. Walt Disney had this vision. No matter how long it took, he was moving this train forward. He got turned down for financing for something like Disney World, something like 300 times, but he was not quitting. He was not giving up. And when you go to Disney World properties and you see the operation, the size of his dream that's tangible, that you can feel and you can walk through, and you have to take trains and buses and trams and I don't know, those lift machine things, like you can't even walk the whole property. It's massive. Then you can see like how big his vision was. There were hundreds of people that couldn't see it. And sometimes it's like that. So my advice to you is, what if you drop the date and take off the limits to your dreams, your goals, whatever, and move forward no matter how long it takes? What might happen then? All right. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you on socials. Have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found value in what I'm sharing here. And if you did, can you do me a little favor and go and rate and review this episode? I will share a link in the show notes so that it's really easy to rate and review this podcast. It would mean a lot to me, as this is truly a passion project. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you next week.